So switching the gear a little bit to Peter, from the APAC point of view, right? Where do you see the next 12 months going to look like? Because the market is a little bit down at the moment, and that's what we're building, and everyone is in the building. What do you think? Like for the next 12 months, trends, anything?
Yeah, I think it's going to continue in lots of ways. And what I mean by continue is just continuity based on the patterns that we've seen. I think just getting more diversified in some vehicles or different areas, right? There are new things popping up every single week. And in terms of investment trends, you see that, for example, last month, the month of April, I think there was north of about like $40 billion deployed on capital across all bunch of like Web 3.0, DeFi, Metaverse, whatever you call it, like crypto and blockchain projects, right? And that's with respect to the market not looking so great. I think that speaks to a couple of things, but primarily it's really powerful to kind of see the trend of decoupling, right? Because for the longest time, we've seen a causal relationship between funds and their willingness to kind of deploy capital in moments in which the markets look green. And in times when it doesn't look so great, that kind of money gets more volatile. Right now, we see that decoupling kind of starting to happen, and we see diversification in terms of what areas of crypto people are investing in. I think that's a really exciting trend. Kind of taking that a step further, I can talk about kind of my excitement for DAOs too, right? I think DAOs are really prevalent. They kind of got popular, I guess, a little bit more last year as well. But the fundamental concept of democratizing like the idea of decision making is really, really powerful. And so I think some of the growth there will continue to exist. And yeah, I mean, those are some of the trends that I see. But really quick, going back to what Tobias and Hayden were sharing, they kind of talk about the idea of equity versus tokens, right? I fully agree. There are some really powerful things that you can do when you kind of diversify your, I guess, approach to how you invest in different protocols and projects. But on the token side of things, that's kind of where our company specializes a little bit further. And what we do, we're kind of like Hayden's firm in that we're not a VC fund ourselves, but we do is support an ecosystem of funds, right? So when they kind of go out and invest in different projects, they might receive tokens, they might receive equity. The question is, what do they do with that? And I think kind of being able to strategize with them in terms of things like vesting schedules, in terms of things like staking these assets, in terms of ultimately things like responsibly exiting their positions, not in a way that harms the ecosystem, but in a way that is kind of, again, very responsible and passive. These are the questions that I think are really important and they're going to continue to be asked as we move forward throughout the year.
I'm glad you brought up one of the interesting points I would like to ask every one of you, but in the next round of questions, which is investment DAO. We go to that a bit later. Stefano, so as a partner for a venture capital fund, right, you have invested a good number of projects across the globe. I would like to ask you, how important is the legitimate of the like the entity setup and the foundation of the company, and where you would like to prefer as one of the investment destinations, just to share with the audience, right, from your experience, which country where you most prefer and which country, let's say, let's stay away from that with the audience. I think it's quite interesting for a lot of the VC and the startup out there to know.
First of all, thank you for pronouncing my name perfectly, like an Italian. A bit of context, because I realized that I did not get your question about where I come from. So I'm currently working as a partner in venture capital. So our core business is high-frequency trading in Switzerland. We are moving 15 billion daily in trading. We're doing market making for FTX, for Bybit, and then we are investing quite aggressively. Actually, we have invested in 25 projects, and now we are investing in about 5 projects a month. We have an office in Dubai, and we are in the midst of setting up the office in Singapore, and that's why there is not the name of the organization that I work for at the back, because it's going to be launched soon. However, we are investing in Singapore, of course, and it's great jurisdiction to invest into. The project that we are looking into at the moment are those that are enablers of the ecosystem. So any organization that is building up something to facilitate the other companies that are working in the ecosystem are good for us. So because there is a shaky ground when it comes to regulation, probably we are not super into taking risks when it comes to investing into jurisdictions that are not fully clear in the white or in the black, but in the gray area is a bit tricky for us. So we tend to play safe and stay for the long run with the companies that we are investing into.
Great. So back to that,
Chris,
you know,
can I just add one thing?
Yes, of course.
So I have a legal background, and I think that the question of structuring and jurisdictions and where you're domiciled is something that we've thought a lot about. And I think I'll just make a quick comment. I think that from the project side, there's probably a couple different things to think about. Number one is, what is your actual business operation going to be, and does setting up in your home jurisdiction require you to get a license that maybe you wouldn't have to get if you were in a different jurisdiction? So I think that projects always need to think about, what are the relevant laws for my business activity, whatever that's going to be. The second part would be if you're issuing a token, and I think this is where BVI and Seychelles and a lot of these other jurisdictions come in. Most companies who are issuing a token don't do it from their main entity. Some do, but most will use another entity. And that might be because they're afraid of many different types of regulations. But there's a pretty standard practice, I think, in the industry of issuing tokens from BVI, which is actually not, if you talk to Europeans, it's not a hugely trusted jurisdiction to invest in. It's kind of seen as like what have you got going on that you need to be in BVI? And then I think the third one is what is your risk of, in the case of some jurisdictions, what is the risk of, either overnight rule change? Wouldn't want to build a business in North Korea, or I'm not going to list all the countries. I'll offend people. I'll get canceled on the internet. But there's lots of places where there's not a stable government, and you can't count on the laws being the same tomorrow as they are today. And there's lots of countries where the bank can just come in and take your assets away. So I think avoiding those types of consequences are all very important. And so there's those three buckets. And I think as investors, we always want to be investing in something that's going to be around in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years. And so the mitigating those three types of risks, I think, are really important.
Excellent answer, excellent answer.